Councilor Garvin, would you do our invocation?
Yes, sir. Father in heaven, creator of all things, we thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for our health and well-being. We ask now that you would lead us as we go through this important meeting. Be with our visitors, be with the staff, be with the Cherokee Nation. Father, I want to pray for our military personnel scattered throughout the world. Pray for their protection. And Father, I want you to bless each of us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Roll call, please, Shelley.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Kara Calamont.
Honey.
Bill England. Bill John Baker.
Here.
Harley Buzzard. Julia Coates. Bradley Cobb. Joe Crittenden.
Here.
Jody Fishenhawk. Meredith Rayleigh. Janelle Fulbright.
Here.
Don Garvin. Chet Hoskin Jr. Hannah Glory Jordan.
Present.
Curtis Snell.
Here.
Christo.
Here.
David Thornton.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
You have a quorum. Thank you, Shelley. Well, we were asked 4 departments to come back to discuss, and it was Education, Health, the Attorney General's office, and the Chief's office. And we will start with Education, please. Which is your tab 6.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We did get through education on the PowerPoint, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay, I believe I went through all of my PowerPoints. I didn't hook it back up.
Thank you.
Councilor Calamont.
But I understood that we were going to have a list of what all the changes were to date as of this morning. And do we not have that? Or-
Yeah. So I believe there were some questions for education. Does anyone have any further questions from education?
I guess we need to move on to the next deal if there's no questions.
He's checking. All right. Okay. Will there be no questions, then we'll move into health.
On health, I would like to move it to the end of discussion today because she is wanting to visit with 2 of the group leaders about health prior to discussion.
Okay, is she here?
She is here and she's out with Councilor Harlan.
Because we're scheduled for 10 o'clock. And health is present.
Thank you.
Let me go get the other 2 counselors and see what.
Okay. And then we have the Attorney General, which was scheduled for 10:30, but we made it.
I want to talk about that.
I'd like to show one out like this too. Right.
That first line is not, that was never voted on. I mean, that was held off until we went through Harley's and did the others.
Mr. Chair, what other did we have scheduled? Was it just health left?
No.
So can we
You get one of them?
I didn't, no, I do now, but.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Was, and this is clarification for my benefit, but one of the first motions Mr. Buzzard made, was it not to set aside 500,000
No.
and then 250 of that was,
No, it was not.
that wasn't never part of a motion?
I've got it. Kind of brought it up. It was never seconded as such, and it was, we deferred it to Harley, but when Harley went through his, and that we would make the changes at that time. And that's what happened.
You've got it being passed too? I do. I had it as being passed. What's your,
Get one
what's your note?
Well, the first one I had was that, was kind of a motion for $500,000 that was, purported to be taken as a friendly amendment, but there was no second, but that 500,000, I have, same as you have, that there was no second, and
Yes.
and that the actual voting motion was Harley's first one,
Yes, it was.
300,000.
Okay.
That's what I have.
So the $250,000 earmark,
I think we might have.
I've got it. Harley made a motion to take $500,000 from Community Service Administration and set it aside, $250,000 of it to self-help community water lines and earmarked for the purpose designated. Joe seconded. Okay.
that's the way I remembered it too.
No.
You need to look at the tape. We'll go back and look at the procedure. That's the way I had it documented too. Use 250 of it and let 250 set aside. Yeah, that's, and we go back and look at this.
That's what we did. I throwed it to
Mr. Chair.
Harley.
Yeah.
Yes.
The first two items on this list don't change anything as in terms of where the money is budgeted. I think it reflects the request to set aside.
But that was never voted on.
We did. I gave it
I
to
believe it.
Harley. Harley put it in water lines, and then we voted on it.
I'm pretty confident. And we got,
I got it.
We made it part of Harley's
We
motion.
made it part of Harley's motion, but Harley's motion was the 300,000 that was moved over.
Plus the 500.
No, that was never
she's
part
gonna
of
go
it.
back and watch the tape. We've got
I think that's probably right.
several
I think
notes
he's
that
probably
says-
right, Connie, that
I'm
my
sure.
motion was the 300,000, but I did think we went back and did the 250.
And if we didn't, then maybe we need to correct it because we've already directed 250 of it towards water lines.
Now, we did go back later for the 200,000 and put the 150,000 back to 10-10-465, which is,
that was a separate motion
Yes,
that
it was.
reduced the 10-10-432.
right.
Now, the first two lines, as Callie said, they're in the same budget. The only reason I put them on here was to show the motion. Because there's no movement within the budget other than set aside or restrict, whatever you want to call it, 500, and then earmark 250 of that exact same money for the self-help water lines within the exact same budget,
Well,
which is what I understand.
the 250 was earmarked, but it's the 500,000 that was never set aside as such.
250 of what?
The 250 of Department 3331-000.
Okay, I could be mistaken, but I thought the 250, the motion was 250 of the 500. That's the reason
No, it was 250.
from,
Was stays in the same item. Councilor Jordan.
Yes, I would just make a motion that we ratify what we have done up to this point by another motion, that all of these are the will of the council, that they be approved. And I think that takes care of it. And I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Now, does that include, excuse me, yes, Councilor Gunn Watts.
Before we vote on it, can we just take a moment to walk through exactly what has been done, where we've moved things from and where we've moved things to?
Okay, Doug, would you do that for us, please? Your motion includes everything that's on this list, is that correct?
Yes.
okay. The first item, obviously when I prepared this, my understanding was to set aside or reserve by appropriation. The only way to get this represented, if the 500 is going to be utilized, was to show it as a non-use of funds, where it was previously budgeted as a use. Now, granted, if this budget's going to be put, the 250 of it is going to stay right where it is, just going to be earmarked for a specific self-help water line project, I put it 250 right back in. The only reason I put these two lines in was to show what I understood the motion was of the purpose for 250 of this budget's dollars. Okay. Now, granted, there's yes, it leaves 250 out there that shows to be a reduction in use of funds, only because I understood it to be reserved at this point or set aside.
It was not.
Number 3 is a vehicle tax administration motion for $300,000 to be reduced out of the admin budget and increased on the vehicle tax road budget. With that, to keep the total roads, my understanding, total roads at the same level with vehicle and fuel tax, there was a reduction of the fuel tax roads construction of $300. Now, I won't really talk about the source column. The source column is to keep the transfers in the equation so the budget stays in balance when we're shifting interfund transfers, monies between funds. Now, that $300,000 reduction funded transfers into livestock auction, sports teams, 25 each, 100,000 self-help water line, and 150 individual water and sewer. Now that everything's, that used that 300 reduction from motor fuels that will be transferred to Gen Fund. The next item 10 is a self-help water line reduction of 200,000 on Gen Fund, which would be freeing out general fund dollars, and 150 of that was reprogrammed over to rural fire stations, 50 and 50,000 to community adult assistance. And then the last motion I had was the tribal council 40 the remaining surplus funds for community mailing.
I would call for the question.
Okay, is there any further discussion? And all those in favor say that
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Councilor Coates.
Did I not call for the question?
We'll ask if there was any further discussion.
After I called for the question.
No. But I'm going to allow Ms. Coates.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Buzzer to, because my recollection from yesterday is that there was some discussion that these were monies that, in fact, the discussion about restrictions on the way that they could be used, that there were IHS restrictions on them, if I'm remembering correctly, and that was the discussion, and that was the reason that they were left where they were. But that there was a specific amount that was earmarked, that was the direction, not that things were removed from anything, but simply that there was an earmark that was placed on the amount of $250,000, that it would be used for these purposes. That's my recollection of it. So I wanted to...
Which is the second item.
That's line item 2. That's just what
Which is true.
Right.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, and you're exactly right, Mr. Coates, the $250,000 is not going to go anyplace. It's going to stay within that department. And the reason I said that, because you can't put those type of dollars into individual water and sewer because of the restrictions from the Indian Health Service of how those funds can be used. This $250 goes into water line construction, and it's perfectly legal to do that. But you're right, it did not move out of the department, it's still there.
And that's the only thing I remember where, as far as the discussion in terms of that $500,000 on the was not.
Right, it did not move.
But it is part of this motion.
Right.
Okay.
So
It had one other thing, clarification for Sheriff. There was a $500,000 number that, my understanding, was set aside.
no, it was not. But it is in this motion. So that's what we're going to vote on right now.
With all due respect, we have 1, 2, 3, and Shelley that all had notes that
No, it was
she's
never
watching the
voted on.
video now, but anyway.
But nevertheless,
Okay.
this is to take care of it.
Okay.
So the end of discussion.
The other,
We're going to vote.
Okay, but this is not
End of
right.
discussion. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying
I'll
aye.
ask a question.
Aye. The question was called, unfortunately.
Well, I call the question there.
Okay.
I call for the question there.
Okay.
Motion was made to pass, to bring the budget. I call the question. I need to know what the 500,000 is for.
That was it. There's nothing, there isn't anything. The 500,000
It's just second.
is just sitting there. Which, okay, all those opposed signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we need Shelley for a roll call.
Now that's the self-help water lines. Okay. So that other 250 of that 500 would eventually roll into it.
It's just earmarked,
Yeah.
just sitting there.
So the motion is to approve everything that's on the list, items 1 through 13.
Right now, it's kind of like that money is set aside for the vacant jobs.
So those in
Yeah.
Kind of same thing.
favor say aye. So Shelley, the roll call, please.
Kara Callan Watts,
Yes.
Bill England,
Yes.
Bill John Baker,
Yes.
Jack Baker,
No.
Harley Buzzard,
Yes.
Julia Coates,
No.
Bradley Cobb,
No.
Joe Crittenden,
Yes.
Jody Fishing Hawk,
Yes.
Meredith Fraley,
No.
Janelle Fulbright,
No.
Don Garvin,
No.
Chuck Hoskin Jr., Tina Glory Jordan,
Yes.
Chris Stowe,
No.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
David Thornton.
No.
We have 8 yes and 8 no.
So the motion fails.
Mr. Chair, you
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay. Shelley pulled up the tape from yesterday, and there was a motion by Harley Buzzard to set aside $500,000 from 331000 and to earmark $250,000 to self-help community water lines for the for this purpose. It was seconded by Joe, and it did pass. If that helps with clarification. Okay.
What?
It passed. Okay. So we just listened. We just watched the tape.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
One of the things Doug and I were talking about on this sheet, I don't believe the intent was to reduce the budget authorization for 333-1000.
Right.
It was merely to say we want that set aside, like Doug said, in a reserve by appropriation. So, and then it came back and said we want 250 on self-help water lines. Right now, the way the sheet is set up, it looks like we reduced that group's budget authority by 250,000.
Yeah, let me.
So
The reason I did that, because I didn't know what else to do with that other 250. If it was in fact going to remain set aside, or if it was not going to be remain set aside, and the 500, the first line one would drop to 250, or if we needed to keep it set aside, then I needed to insert a row that says 250 reserved by appropriation, all within the same budget. I wasn't trying to cut it. I was only doing what I heard from yesterday.
and I
And
agree.
that never did get addressed yesterday, as far as I remember, of whatever happens to the other 250. So without knowing, I didn't want to be presumptuous and put something in here that wasn't what y'all voted on.
Councilor Baker.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, after them listening to the tape, and that was what the motion second and what passed yesterday, I'd like for you to declare this as what it is.
But we just voted. But I would entertain a motion that we,
We could
Point of clarification, please.
It was voted on yesterday, and it ought to be the
Now.
law, or it ought to be this ought to be correct.
Point of clarification, Mr. Hembry. We voted on something and it passed yesterday. We re-voted on something under the assumption we did not vote on it. Where are we in Robert's Rules of Order right now?
Okay. What was approved yesterday has been approved. Okay. What we voted on here was a kind of a clarification, for lack of a better word, a clarification. What our vote here does not change what happened yesterday. We have it memorialized in video and audio. Okay. So that ongoing process is what makes the budget. Now, at the end of the day, we will pass the budget, as a total with everything that we've done. And what we're trying to do here is to not reconfirm but clarify what happened yesterday. What we did right here failed. Okay, that does not undo what happened, in my opinion. So, but.
So then these changes do stand as such on the sheet?
Point of information.
Yes.
So like,
They
point
can.
of order.
Yes.
So technically, the way I understand it and interpret it, I don't know that it's different than what the attorney, Mr. Hembry, has stated, but it is, to answer your question more specifically, it is a different motion because it was on the overall package. I think all minds are not clear on the original motion yesterday, which would create, we would have to go back to the record, but it would have to be a motion to reconsider if we were to revisit yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I personally am just going to go to the default that we assume there was a balanced budget. Therefore, that action was what I think people intended. Some people thought they voted on yesterday or intended. But we would have to have a motion to reconsider to rescind that. But this now muddies the waters because the overall actions have not been ratified. That motion failed, right?
No.
No, that's clarification.
You're right to this extent. To undo anything that happened yesterday would have to be a motion to reconsider that would have to come from the prevailing side. Okay, so therefore,
Or we could have a motion to rescind.
we could have that'd be up to the chair. But but I would believe it'd be a motion to reconsider. But at this point, by taking the action that we did in the form that it was, we didn't nullify everything that we did yesterday. What we did yesterday stands. All right?
Okay. Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, Doug, can you clarify for us? We went through a process where we've set aside some monies in a particular budget line. We don't know where that money was supposed to be set aside because we didn't clearly define where it was supposed to go according to what your recollection is, correct? And so where does that default go?
Okay. We can insert one row into the schedule and I think clarify all this. By putting a $250,000 row in here on the same budget that says reserved by appropriation. If the intent is to keep it set aside, then let me go ahead and if that's the intent, the only reason I left that line out because it sounded like you weren't finished with this issue yesterday because there was this $250,000 that was earmarked and then a $250 that wasn't.
Right.
If I insert a row and your intent was to keep it set aside, but don't take it out of the budget.
It's not my intent. But my question is the default. If we participated in action here that says we're going to take this $500,000 out of this department that this budget was submitted, and then we turned around and earmarked $250 of it to put some strings attached to it. By default, where does that other $250 go?
Reserved by appropriation if you take no more action.
Right.
It's set aside in a reserve account.
Okay.
And that's the row that's not on here.
But it's not in EHS. It's just out here to be.
No, it'll stay on this budget.
Okay.
It'll stay on this budget.
That's my question is that it's in this budget line. It hasn't been removed yet to go over here to some of these other accounting areas. So it's still in EHS at this point by default because we didn't clearly describe the action to say, put it over in this other area.
That is absolutely correct.
Great, thank you for that clarification.
But it is set aside so that it cannot be spent by them until we...
It is set aside, Mr. Chair. It was, let me take responsibility for the confusion, Mr. Chair, because by not wanting to be presumptuous, I left the 250,000 positive row out of here because I did not know if you wanted it in fact reserved in the comprehensive budget going forward into next year, or if you were going to revisit it and do something with what you set aside yesterday morning. If there's no other action, I've got to stick a 250 back in here to show that set aside in an account, because right now it's not even in the budget.
Councilor Buzzer.
Yes, and I think Doug explained it fairly well, and I think these are good questions that need to be answered and clarified, but we're all absolutely right. The $250,000 is not going to go anyplace. It's going to stay in the EHS budget. I don't think they'll ever use it for self-help water lines, so if it's not, it'll be carried over to next year. So the monies are all there. What I tried to do in this budget is use everything that was in the community service budget and live within those budget items, and I thought we did that yesterday. I think the confusion was, Doug, it's your fault you left the 250 line. If we could go back and do that, I think it would clarify a lot, because the money has gone nowhere. It's still in the community service budget. So thanks for the clarification.
And if maybe, if maybe a motion, well, wait a minute, no, maybe you don't even need a motion, because by default, it's in a reserve by appropriation. So let me just correct this schedule and put that 250 in there as a reserve.
It's a reserve, but it means they cannot spend it until...
That's correct. It is set aside.
Allow them to spend it.
They can't spend what's set aside.
And Mr. Chair, and I think that's a simple motion to come back and request those 250 if they get in the bind and need it. I don't see a problem with it, you know. But as a historical finances go for the last 2 or 3 years, they've done a good job. That's the reason we had that carryover in there. So, you know, they didn't hire an engineer, stuff like that. So that's the reason for the carryover in there. So, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Thorne.
Doug, these are additions to these different budgets in here, like livestock office, Cherokee sports, and self-help community water. I would like to see if the addition to the total number that's in the budget now. In other words, if you added 25,000, what did that make that budget?
The overall budget.
The overall budget.
The overall budget?
Yes, it's not here.
That line item.
You got a livestock auction, you
It was
added
zero.
25,000, what did it make that budget?
25.
It was zero.
Okay,
It was zero.
What was already, it was zero.
It was zero.
Right.
Okay, is there any up in there that wasn't zero?
Fire department.
Fire department wasn't zero.
Fire department now is 280. 284.
I think it was 125.
That's community service.
Yeah, 120. Yeah, 120 in it this year.
Okay. It's up to,
And there needs to be a column about fiscal year 2010 and what that was. And what the total, what it becomes in 2011.
on this attachment.
But anyway, whatever it increased, that budget, I'd like to see whichever one, I'm sure self-help water lines increased the budget. How much did it make? Without me going back through and looking through the budget and seeing what's there, why didn't you just put a total out here to the side and let them know how much is in that budget?
Okay. I can do that.
Okay, well, next we have the health.
I thought we had education first today.
We've already gone through education.
We haven't voted on it yet, have we, that we're done with it?
No, but we didn't do that for most of them. But do you,
What do you want to talk about?
Do you want to readdress education?
No, I don't want to reverse it, I always voted on it yesterday.
Mr. Chair,
Councilor Buster.
I just want some clarification on this budget here. So where are we on it?
This is, it stands
Okay.
as is.
Thank you.
Yes. We called for education earlier, and you were not in the room, and there were no questions. Do you want to readdress?
No.
Okay, then we'll move to health.
I would ask to move to the Attorney General's budget. It was originally scheduled at 10:30.
Okay. But health, what? You're not? Okay. Do you want to make a motion that we move to Attorney General?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed?
And opposed?
Yes.
As soon as possible, we're running through with everything else. So you can ask for a recess for these next 2 items. Okay, Attorney General.
Good morning.
Good morning. I believe there were some questions for you, and whoever had the questions, I will refer to them.
I hadn't.
Okay, Councilor Jordan.
Diana, I was looking at your budget, and then we also got a FY11 budget vacant positions.
Yes.
And previously, I think it was Mr. Thornton and I had asked about how many lawyers you had and what they did. And I noticed on your list that you have 10 lawyers. Maybe
10 including me.
Okay, 10 lawyers in your department and a budget of $2.5+ million.
Okay.
And on the vacancies, I noticed that we had a senior assistant attorney general and a paralegal that are using tribal funds that total $189,000. And I wondered if there was a possibility that we could get by with leaving those unfilled so that we could access those tribal funds for other needed services this year. And if there was a possibility that you could get along with the 10 attorneys that you had, because I know you just hired Susan, which between you and Susan, there's 100 years of experience. I'm not trying to date you.
No, there probably is. I was
but
thinking that's probably right.
I realize that there's probably no two better minds in Indian law right now, and I think it was quite a coup for you to be able to bring her on board. And I've also noted the specialty areas of some of the other assistant attorney generals that you have, and I think you've got an excellent staff. I know most of them. I know many of your paralegals, and I would put your group up against probably any state attorney general's office in the country right now.
Thank you.
And I'm just wondering if you could see your way where maybe we could leave those vacant, redirect those dollars for this year while we've got this crisis somewhat in our budget because of the economy and the downturn of some of our businesses that provide us dividends. If that would be a possibility that your department could consider for this year.
Certainly, we can. We already cut 3 positions. I think actually what we have now are 2 senior assistant attorney general slots and the paralegal 1 slot.
Now, the only thing, don't tell me any more than I need to know. The only thing I'm asking for is what's on this sheet. You might not want to start adding to it.
Okay. So the short answer is yes. What I had anticipated or thought that I was going to do with those senior slots is that's our only career ladder. And I've got...
Well, we'd leave you 1 then.
Okay. I've got 2.
You've got 2. Because I don't want people in your department to think that there's not an advantage to staying and that eventually they would move to the next step. And I realize to be competitive that you've got to do that. But if you could give us these 2 slots, not the other slot that I didn't know about, and I'm going to put that out of my brain, because that will continue to allow you to be competitive. And I realize those are young people that you have in your department that need that, need to know that there's another level for them.
We're willing to do anything that we can to help overall, and that's fine.
If you could do that, then I would put that in the form of a motion that we take that $189,407, and my understanding is that's for a paralegal and a senior assistant attorney general, that you would be agreeable with leaving those vacant, that we could redirect those dollars, set those aside for some other things in the budget that are coming up during today's work. I would put that in the form of a motion.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, motion's been made, second. Okay, discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Councilor Con.
I apologize. I just wanted to point out that the latest information I have on vacancies for the OAG, which was as of mid-August, there's only 131,000 and some change funded through tribal
Did I look at that wrong, Kelly?
That's OAG.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Office of the Chief.
Okay, then 131,479 is what I'm talking about. I would amend my motion to reflect, I'm sorry, I got off on the wrong line.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure we had it right.
We're talking $131,472?
Yes.
And that's all we would be asking to,
And I believe I have the
redirect.
floor. Is that
Yes.
correct, Mr. Chair?
Well, they were still
And
sensitive, but
would
Councilor,
there have to be a new second on that amendment?
do you accept it as?
I do.
Okay, Councilor Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, I appreciate your willingness to work with us and try to meet us on a request. However, even with you and Susan and an army of attorneys, we still have 2 major legal struggles upon us. We have the Freedmen and we have the water issues. And it probably a number of others, plus the Indian child welfare issues that are ongoing, and we never know when those are going to arise or how much time they'll take or what state they require us to even travel to. If I were in your shoes, you are the independent attorney general, I think you've already cut significantly from your budget, especially those dollars that might allow us to hire outside attorneys of certain expertise given any kind of situation. I cannot vote to cut this further on the budget. I think that we need, even as an engineer who was not as familiar with attorneys and the need for attorneys, because we seem to be surrounded by attorneys in Indian country. You and your staff are essential to the functioning of the tribe at so many levels. You're supposed to, I see you as an independent agency, just like the judicial branch, that we respect you, the judicial branch's request, the Cherokee Phoenix and the Freedom of Information Act and their request, in order to balance out, because, God forbid we do anything wrong as a body or as individuals, but I cannot see cutting you further. And I'm always excited that we can hire Cherokees on our staff to help fight our legal battles that are your responsibility under the Constitution. But I do not see giving up these additional positions. I cannot support that. And I don't know what it took to get that agreement. I think there's other places we should be finding money. So we just have too much on our plate at this point that's coming forward more than likely in the next year.
Well, we have,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
just briefly, I think we have 3 major issues, and one of them just came to a head. And of course, there are points where it comes up periodically, but we just received Mr. Echohawk's decision regarding the United Katua Band's ability to take land into trust within our jurisdiction. That's, as you know, another legal battle. My position is, certainly I don't want it cut. I understand what the nation's facing, and this body, you have all the information in front of you. I leave it to your discretion. We will do the best we can with what we have.
Okay, Councilor Fishing-Hawk.
Diane, first off, I want to tell you, thank you for allowing and telling us that you can do without one of the positions, especially in a time when money's type. And I realize we got a bunch of lawyers on board, and I have looked at the billing for the Friedman lawsuit, and I realize that's contract services. And Lord knows I was one in the middle of the Friedman mess. But I do have a problem giving the lawyers and the outside lawyers as much money as we have. Matter of fact, I have requested several times for us to please give me the fees, and I think I made a GRA even on it, on what we spend on lawyers from this tribe. Because I remember it wasn't so many years ago that our previous chief was crucified for the $600,000 he spent on lawyer fees. So while I'm sitting up here talking, I do want my request for the lawyer fees up here. And Diane, like I said, I'm glad you're saying that you're willing to do without one of the positions, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilor Connell.
I just want to make sure what the motion is, that 131,472, are you just setting that aside?
For right now.
We're just voting to take it out and set it aside for later action.
Right,
Is that
it's
right?
tribal funds, and there will be other things coming up today that I believe we're going to want to use it for.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Frey.
As you well know, Todd and I are looking at new and some reform legislation, which will be working with your group also. Is that going to take away, if we vote on this 131, will that take away from that ability also? I mean, these other priorities are much more important, I realize. However, this is important too. Sure. Will that take away from your funding if your ability to help us if we take this 131 from your budget?
Well, the more we have to do with the amount of people, obviously it's going to have an effect. We have grown a lot in recent years. 1.5 of those attorney slots out of the 10 are devoted strictly to child support enforcement, since we took that from the Chickasaws. The Hastings acquisition, taking the housing authority back in-house. We do a lot of mortgage foreclosures and quiet titles and things that we never used to do. So as the nation has grown and as we have become more independent as a government and become more proactive and exercised our self-governance, our need for our own attorneys has grown. And we have tried to take more in-house and cut down the outside attorney fee budgets. But obviously, we'll have an effect.
Because I know your outside contracting ability has been cut enormously.
That's where we took the 2 big cuts prior to coming here.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Jordan.
I noted on your 110 litigation budget that we've left, or that you have in your budget for 2011, $313,000, and your actuals in 209 was 300, and your actuals in 210, I guess, are somewhere around 313,000. Is that not where you take care of your outside attorneys for the Friedman issue and the other main issues that we were talking about today? So the last couple of years we've used 300,000 and we left you 300,000.
I think that's the advocacy. The one that's called advocacy is the Friedman litigation. That's
okay, so
solely,
there's 500,000 in that.
Okay, and then there's the other one that's called
litigation,
and that's for
other issues.
Right. We use the Sonosky firm, for example.
So you have 800,000 in your budget that we're not touching.
Right.
For those things, the issues that Councilor Carroll was talking about, and that Councilor Meredith was talking about. Okay. Folks, this has been a person that has come to us and said, hey, we can make it this year without these 2 spots. I think she's to be commended for that. I don't believe anything in her office will be diminished by what we're doing here today. Everybody is just tightening their belt, and if we find that there is a need for these positions, we're going to have to carry over in March, and we can certainly revisit it. And by then, Diane's going to know for certain, or did that make an impact? If it did, we can put these positions back in March. She has come here today and been willing to work with us. We don't see that very often. We're not seeing that in other departments. I can't believe that anyone on this council would vote not to utilize this money for some direct services for the people when she's been willing to say, yes, I can make it with what you're leaving me this year. And she's doing that knowing that she's an independent body, knowing that she has the ability to step up here and say, nope, I need all this money. And I just have so much respect for Diane for her willingness to come here and do this. And I really think in these critical times that if we've got this money here, this $131,000, folks, we need to set aside for what we're going to need for the rest of the day. Then she needs to be at the top of the list for review in March when this carryover money comes up. And she will be at the top of my list. And I will remember that she's made this sacrifice today. And I'm asking you all once again, let's do the right thing for the people. We've got a little money here that we can set aside for some other critical services that are going to be talked about here in a little bit. Let's set this money aside and let's do this today where there's no foul, no one's hurt. Thank you very much.
Councilor Coates.
Thank you. Mine is really sort of a question to Councilor Jordan, I guess. You've alluded several times to things coming up later in the day, what we are going to need for the rest of the day, critical services. All of this is sort of mysterious to me unless these things are actually defined as to what it is you're talking about later on, or are we simply removing monies just in case there is something? Are there specific things that these kinds of comments are alluding to, and if so, what are they? Because that would help me a great deal in deciding how to address this. So that's my question.
Right now, I would like to put it as a reserve. We have very, very little money in reserves. Very, very little money. That's something Callie's been talking about all through this process, is that there's very little money in reserve. So let's put it over in reserve for a little bit.
Can I still have the floor?
Yes.
Then if it's as vague as simply putting something into reserves, I'm not inclined to support this. We've had a surplus that was also very, very small in this budget of $46,000, which we took for the purposes of doing mailings. And this is a very, very tight budget. I don't deny that. I don't think anybody at this table can deny that. But the Attorney General's office is also tight, just like every other department. And they've already experienced significant cuts, as far as I can tell, to this budget. And without better specific reason of why we need to have money from this department specifically, to simply go into reserves for something that continues to be alluded to that is going to happen later today, but which you seem unwilling to specifically define at this moment. I'm sorry, I probably will not be able to support this. Thank you.
Councilor Soto.
Yeah, I just want to say, Attorney General, that I appreciate the information that you've provided to us and so forth. But I'm looking at the 08 actuals, 09 actual budgets, and while there's been a reduction there, you know, the new 2011 budget is even below those numbers. And just thinking about all the opportunities that we have in the future for the things that are going to impact our nation, I just can't support any further reductions. I mean, you've already went to the table and have trimmed away all the fat, which is to be commended. That's the part I think that is to be commended, is that you took the heed of the direction of the chief, and knowing that it needs to affect the people at the bottom of the budget and at these hearings, and you went and, I mean, you're pretty accurate on your budgeting. And so, but to reduce that any further, I just can't support it, looking at what our history has been and thinking about the things in the future that may arise. So I won't be supporting any budget cuts that have been recommended so far.
Okay. Councilor Gordon.
I think it was said earlier that I was one of the ones that asked how many lawyers and what their expertise was. And my main purpose on that, you give me, and you have a lawyer, or a couple of them that have expertise in water rights. And we've sat here on our rears year after year after year on water rights. And I guess we're just waiting for somebody else to jump over the line and start something. But it looks like to me we need to start something, because it's getting closer and closer and closer to we're going to lose our water rights if we don't, because the state's going to try to take them over, and that's where it's all headed to, down that lane, it looks like to me. And that's primarily the reason I was wanting to know. If you're willing to give this up, I'll vote for it. And it's up to you as far as I'm concerned.
You know, again, I haven't been here for these 2 days, and I didn't put together the comprehensive budget. I will leave it up to the discretion of the body. We made cuts. Certainly, I don't want to lose any more, but if that's for the benefit of the overall budget and in your wisdom you believe that's best, then I certainly don't have any argument against it.
Mr. Cherokee, your second.
Jack, if I could, I'll just go ahead and tell you where I want to put it. I'd like to amend my motion to move that money to the clothing for kids budget, which we have basically reduced by that amount. And that would be 10-10-458.
And it's for what?
For the clothing for kids.
And I will second that. That's the one that took $100,000
Yes,
cut, isn't it?
we cut it, and I don't know where we're supposed to tell these kids when they come in and want their clothing vouchers next year, because we've used that money that we've cut from it.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, you're amending your motion and your second accepting it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, Kelly?
I just wanted to point out that clothing for kids is in the proposed budget at $500,000, which is what we started 2010 at. During the year, council did appropriate additional $100,000 into that budget. I don't have final numbers yet for 2010, but it was submitted at the original amount for 2010. This is one of those programs that we don't know how much it's going to cost until we get further into the process. So we did not cut that budget $131,000. We submitted it at the original 2010 amount.
Councilor Fishing, you had
Yes.
second time.
Second. Okay. As you all know, this is one of my favorite things to do is for the kids. It's one of the direct services. And we have cut so many direct services out to the kids. And I know you all heard me yesterday when I was talking about so much money that we was holding and using for salaries or for things that might happen. This was funded at $500,000 again, just like it was last year. We put another $100,000 in it to bring it up to $600,000. The year before, it used more than that. The economy is not any better than when we first brought this up. It's worse. Last year, instead of getting 125, they got 100, and that was after a fight, because I know some people want to keep it at 75. This is for the kids. I brought in some receipts here that we had requested. These are lawyer receipts, and I was a little shocked at what we're paying our lawyers on contract. But when I found out we could pay somebody $125 an hour to sit in the copy room and make copies at $125 an hour, I was shocked. So yeah, I would rather my money be going to helping kids than a lawyer or somebody that's in the copy room making that. Or the mail guy that makes $200,000 to carry a memo from Office A to Office B. And I want everybody, I hope our constituents know that's what we're paying these people to do.
Mr. Chair?
I want to give this money to the kids to directly help them and their parents at school. And I don't think that's any less than anybody on this council does for their own kids. That's all I have to say.
My comment is we're mixing our metaphors here. We're comparing legal fees with external attorney firms that are market price, As much as we all hate it, we do need attorneys once in a while.
Thank you, Howard.
And we're sorry, Meredith. And we're comparing that to clothing for kids, which is a program that's been around for several years and it's very well
I want
administered.
to know where you got the market price for the $125 coffee girl. Can you see me a comparison? Somebody please.
Excuse me.
Okay.
I mean,
That's fine.
we're getting into a finger pointing and
Okay. Is there any other discussion on the issue?
I just want to make sure where we are on this. I know that it was amended, so now I'm trying to figure out what this 131,472 is actually doing.
It's going to the clothing for kids, 1010,458, and it's reducing Attorney General by 2 staff people
That are vacant.
that are currently vacant. Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Roll call, please, Shelley.
Bill John Baker,
Yes.
Jack Baker,
No.
Harley Buzzard,
No.
Julia Coates,
No.
Bradley Cobb,
No.
Joe Crittenden,
Yes.
Jody Fishinghawk,
Yes.
Meredith Fraley,
No.
Janelle Fulbright,
No.
Don Garvin,
No.
Scott Costigan Jr., Tina Corey Jordan,
Yes.
Chris Soap,
No.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
David Thornton,
Yes.
Kara Cowan Watts,
No.
Bill England.
No.
We have 6 yes and 10 no.
Okay, motion fails. Okay. Is there anything further the Attorney General? No, we appreciate your coming in, Diane.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Next, we have the Chief's Office.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I put forth that we go to health group? They waited quite a while yesterday, and they've waited quite a while today.
Second, we're concurrence.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded that we go to health now. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Melissa. So do we have questions for the health group? Are there no further questions for health?
Oh, I have a question. We were saving health because I thought we was going to get together and try to talk some of this out, but we'll go with it right now. Let's talk about the gyms because that was brought up. I got some questions over Marcoma. I got some questions over some gyms that would be provided in the 14 county area and Benita.
Okay, do you want to address those to Melissa or?
Yeah, Doug, whoever. Doug, you around?
Yes.
Okay, Doug, yesterday we talked about Benita and Marcoma, and we was told yesterday that the reason we didn't want to pull Marcoma out and fund it with compact dollars, the gym, is because then it would have to meet IHS regulations, eligibility, which means basically that, that nobody that was an Indian could use the gym?
That's a better question answered by Melissa than me.
Okay.
She's more familiar with the IS.
Okay, Melissa.
That's the basic concept, that you have IHS eligibility, which means you have to be Native American to use the service.
Okay. And how many people would that affect?
I think it's about 3,000 out of 9,000.
So we got 3,000 non-Indians using it, about a third of the people over there are non-Indians. Okay. I know. Beg your pardon?
Actually, Doug, plus it'll affect the fees of $55,000
With
we
the
charge non-members. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Meredith. Okay. Several of us mentioned something about a gym in our counties, putting a gym in our counties, because this is only in Tahlequah. Melissa, can you tell us about the plans to put a gym in the outlying counties other than Tahlequah? Adair, Delaware, Sequoia, Mays? Tulsa, there's no plans? Is it ever been on the board to have a plan to provide a gym somewhere else? Because we got $1 million in, that, you know, discretionary dollars going into a gym over here in Cherokee County.
The recreation center is funded out of tribal dollars. It was passed by this council 3 years ago, I think. There are no funds to add any of it. I have no funds in health to do that.
Okay, Benita, Doug, we figured yesterday there was what, 1.4?
Well, 1 million of tribal dollars. It's a $1.4 million budget, but 400,000 is third-party revenue, Medicaid and Medicare, private insurance. So it's a $1 million use of tribal funds.
Okay, and third-party revenues for this year, if I looked in the book right, was what, about 59 million?
I believe that's,
And I think it's in the big book.
yeah, I believe that's accurate.
For Benita? I would like some compelling reason to tell me why Benita couldn't be switched over. With 59 million in third-party revenues alone.
All of that revenue is budgeted by the health department. It's budgeted throughout the health system, different clinics. So it's not like there is a surplus in this budget of third-party revenue to reallocate. The health department is our largest group. It's a very complex budget. They have reduced their dependence on gen fund or discretionary funding over the last 3 to 4 years significantly. I believe just in the last 2 years it's gone down by $6 million. In 2012, with the new construction of the clinic in Bonita, we will have a joint venture, which will mean new funding for that, specifically for that clinic. So that will be the last location that would be funded through discretionary money, and that would happen in 2012. This would be the last year that this is being requested out of motor fuels tax.
I would just add, specific to your question, a compelling reason why these cannot be taken out of third-party revenue. I don't know, I didn't hear an answer to that, but they can. Obviously, third-party revenues can be used to fund a health clinic.
Right.
Whether it's compacted or not.
Right.
Now, excuse me, when that happens, there is a need to provide that $1 million out of existing budget somewhere else, which goes back to my comment yesterday. If I was going to take $1 million out of other budgets in health, it would be from something that was not already in existence or already on payroll for a staff. And that's why I took back to the new positions.
Something that
But
would
it
take away
can,
from something
I think
going on.
the way I heard your question, Jody, was a compelling reason why it can't.
Yes.
Okay. It can. It's a matter of where does it come from. But as far as, I'm not aware of any regulatory or legal reason that would prohibit that, your question, what you're talking about being done.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate that clarification. No, I'm not stating there is a legal reason it can't be done. I'm stating that the health department put together their comprehensive budget. They have made their requests, and we stand behind that request that was submitted through health department. It's a large group to manage, and I think they do a great job of managing their budget. And you know, third-party revenue serves a lot of purposes, capital improvements. It has funded some of the improvements at Hastings. So the budget submitted by Health Department is what is supported by Health and the administration.
Doug, how much money do we get coming in every year in IHS and the compact dollars? Because they are self-government.
Well, the third party number is about 58.
Mm-hmm.
Close to,
58,
close to
I was going to say 58, something close to
58
59
million.
million.
Yeah. Now the compact is going to be in the 110, 120, around a 120 range.
So 120 million in compact dollars, another 59 in third-party revenues. We went over all the positions. in health yesterday that was sitting there that hadn't been filled, and that's not going to be filled. Let's not lie to ourselves, folks. They're not going to be filled. None of these clinics are going to be run at capacity, and all the employees do. And anybody that expects somebody to believe that, I can't believe you expect anybody to believe that, to be quite honest. We've been on this council for 3 years. We know they're not going to hire all these positions. That money is sitting there. That money is sitting there doing nothing. It's not helping our people do anything. It's not providing direct services. It's sitting there as a surplus. If they was going to go out and hire doctors so my people wouldn't have to wait all day or be told to come back tomorrow, that would be different. But to let this money sit here while our people are still not getting health care for these dollars is stupid to me. That's the only way I can put it. There is money in this health. We all know it's sitting at this council. We know there's money sitting there. And I'm going to tell you what, I'll give on Marcoma just because I'm going to ask you here in a little bit. Will you all, Melissa, will you eventually, is there any, you have nothing on the plans to put a gym anywhere else? I want to get that out first. In another county. Okay, so we're going to have one that we're going to supply $1 million here in Tahlequah. And I'll leave that right now. But I would like to make a motion for the Veneta Clinic, operating the 1.4, to come out in a reserve and set it aside for right now. I do know what I want to do with it. Set it aside for right now. I want to eventually use it for the 911 part of it for that and to provide direct services to the people. But I want to make a motion for the 1.4 to come out and to be switched over to third-party revenues. There's too much money tied up. And I'll leave your Marcoma alone for now.
Wait, you're wanting 1.4 million
From
taken
the-
out and put into
Because it's going to be...
put into third-party revenue?
No,
You can't put it into third-party revenue.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, wait.
I want the 1.4 that we're using for Veneta right now. Doug? $1 million.
400 is already being paid for out of
Third-party revenues. So I need the $1 million.
It would
Yes.
just be $1 million is all that, from understanding.
Yeah, the $1 million in the tribal funds.
The tribal funds is $1 million. not
Okay, the $1 million. I
Okay,
that's okay, the
funds
1.4.
from the Veneta Clinic.
Yeah, and the Veneta Clinic to be funded with third-party revenues. Because next year, I think it's going to be a joint venture, and it's going to go in there anyway, in the next fiscal year. And I may get the form of a motion.
To make a motion to reduce the Veneta Clinic by $1 million. Right? Okay, is it?
I'll second with the understanding that those funds that we're reducing the clinic by are going to be replaced by third-party revenue. So $1 million of tribal funds would be set aside, but that would be replaced for the Veneta Clinic by the third-party revenues.
Mr. Chair, may I address that? The third-party revenues are fully budgeted in this budget. The estimate that is in there is fully requested in all of the health budgets. We're not increasing our estimate of third-party revenues. We can't just arbitrarily increase our estimate. Second point is vacant positions. The group leader of health stood here yesterday and explained how complex the staffing is for the health clinics. When a nurse or a doctor leaves, they use extra contracts. So by saying that because you've got vacant positions, you've got lots of extra money in your budget, that's not necessarily giving a clear picture. The health department has a staffing plan. They have resources available to them as they're trying to recruit for contract people. So I just want to make it clear that just because it looks like there's some vacant positions doesn't mean they're not performing the work.
Okay, so the motion's been made and seconded that we take $1 million out of the Veneta Clinic.
With the provision that it be replaced by third-party revenue.
But where's the third-party revenue coming from?
Well, if she doesn't have enough third-party revenue, then she's got 280 some vacant positions that total I think it's either $5 or $9 million.
Okay, motion's made that $1 million be taken out and that $1 million be replaced with any third-party revenue that may come in.
I'll go for clarification. I may withdraw my motion. If you can show me in the past where all of these positions, give me the last year all of these positions was filled in health.
Call for the question.
I may withdraw it, but I need that clarification.
Point of order, since a council person just stepped into the chambers, would you please repeat the motion before we take the vote? And yes, the question's been called, I'm not challenging that.
Okay. The motion is that we take $1 million out of the $1.4 million for the Bonita Clinic. With the understanding, so that's what the motion is at this point. So, now the question's been called, but
Are we going to have any discussion on it? Nobody discussed it but Ms. Fishinghall.
well, I do have a couple of people that had already held their hands up before the question was called. And Councilor Soap was one, or was that to call the question? Okay. Councilor Buzzard?
I do have a comment, and it's about the gym, Melissa, and we just heard that we're spending close to $900,000 on a gym here in Cherokee County, and I've asked repeatedly about these services to be spread out over our other districts. Nothing has been done. What I'd like to see, and if you could commit or at least look into the situation, we have a gym there in Jay, Grove, Washington County has, and Mays County, is to go in and help maybe pay some of those fees for tribal citizens. I know that has been done in the past, and I don't know what success you've had, but at least
Councilor Buzzard?
Yes.
That's not germane to the motion that's on the floor, which is to take $1 million out.
Well, I never did get discuss about the gym that she brought up.
But we're going to come back to that.
Okay. Well, then I do want to discuss about the $1 million that's coming out. If I could see where the third-party allocations are going, then I may vote for this, or not vote for it. But I don't know, have a clue where we're putting $59 million of third-party revenue that's come from the health department at. Is it paying for land? Is it paying for capital improvement someplace? Or is it paying for health? Or is it all going back into the health bill? So, I'd kind of like to know where the $59 million is going.
It's all going to operations. As I'm sure you're all aware, we do get funded through IHS, but it's at what percentage of need? 52% of need. So that third-party revenue helps us to be able to operate these clinics at the level that we operate them. And this is what I'm saying. Every penny of that third-party revenue is budgeted. Jay depends on it. Salina depends on it. Stillwell depends on it. All of our clinics, Redbird depends on it. Muskogee. Every clinic we have depends on this third-party revenue. And it is all part of the operating budget for health. If there are funds available in the form of carryover, that is generally brought forward the following year for capital improvements. That's how we're able to fund Salina Dental without borrowing money. That's how we're able to do a lot of the capital improvements that we're doing at Hastings without borrowing money. So yes, we do have vacant positions in our budget, and yes, they do not always get filled. But we hire these people to manage these groups, and I think they're doing a great job of it because we are operating clinics at 52% of the funding, and we're able to make up for that with our third-party revenue and keep these clinics operating and keep improving them. That's where the money goes that we save is capital improvements.
Councilor Garvin.
And I want to respond to that. And I appreciate I appreciate your response, Callie, and I think they're good responses because I know being in those positions where you have to budget funds, you have to budget where they think can best be used. And I'm glad you said that almost 100% of that is used back in the health field. I'm okay with that. The other thing that that I want to address is I'd like to see more dollars put into dental and eyeglass and those specialty type care. I just don't think we're doing enough in those particular fields. But anyway, I just want to, those are my comments, and the other thing I do want to address to Jim a bit when we get to it. Thank you.
Councilor Garvin.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think the call for questions called for it, and I think when it's called, the debate's supposed to stop. Am I right?
Well, you can take technically, when a question has been called, there's a vote on the call of the question.
If someone wants to take a vote.
Yeah, if it's unanimous consent, you all stop. But just the just saying the words "call for the question" does not cut off the debate. It has to be a vote of the body that will technically do
It
that.
doesn't have to be unanimous, so just.
As a majority.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I know Mr. Garvin heard before, but I want to express that I don't want to cut off debate. If the vote needs to be called, then that's for us.
Okay. Anything further, Councilor Garvin?
No, thank you.
Councilor Jordan, and then Councilor Hoskin.
I would respectfully ask for a 10-minute recess, and maybe this can be worked out during that recess. So I make that form of a motion.
So the motion's been made for 10-minute recess. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
David Thornton,
No.
Kara Cowan Watts,
No.
Bill Anglin,
No.
Bill John Baker,
Yes.
Jack Baker,
No.
Harley Buzzard,
Yes.
Julia Coates,
No.
Bradley Cobb,
Yes.
Joe Crittenden,
Yes.
Jody Fishinghop,
Yes.
Meredith Fraley,
No.
Janelle Fulbright,
No.
Don Garvin,
No.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
Yes.
Hannah Gloria Jordan,
Yes.
Chris Sutton.
No.
Eight yes and 9 no.
Okay, motion fails. Okay, Councilor Hoskin.
And, Mr. Chairman, it's probably directed towards Callie. And Callie, I know you spoke about this before I entered the room, so you're probably repeating yourself. But could you just again outline, the motion is to move $1 million of third-party revenues to the Bonita Clinic. Is that correct? Or $1.4 million?
Yeah, as I understand the motion, it is to remove the $1 million of motor fuel tax funding for the Bonita Clinic and find that $1 million somewhere else within the health system, which means reducing budgets in other areas or reducing the Bonita budget to balance that $1 million.
You wouldn't reduce the Bonita budget because we're directing you to spend $1.4 million.
No, the motion is to take the $1 million out of the Bonita Clinic.
Yeah. The motion was, as I understand it, was to remove the motor fuels tax as a funding source for Bonita, and it said replace it with third-party revenue. Well, the third-party revenue is fully budgeted in this budget, so the impact of that would be you reduce other budgets or you reduce Bonita. However, it would be $1 million switch, or actually, it would be $1 million reduction in funding for the healthcare system.
It would be $1 million reduction in funding for the healthcare system, but that reduction would manifest itself potentially in the elimination of unfilled positions. Is that correct? Let me yield to Councilor Fishinghawk.
It was a redirection of money.
If I could.
We're wanting to redirect it
Redirect it from what source?
from third-party revenues. What I'm saying is there's enough play in their budget that they can absorb this $1 million. I don't care if it's in all the millions tied up in unfilled positions that we're never going to hire. I don't know if it's all the... Okay, how many times have we carried over equipment that we're going to buy from year to year to year? There's enough play in that budget to absorb $1 million is what I'm saying. And I don't want it to come from your clinic. What we're saying is redirect the dollars y'all sitting there and let, not being used.
at the end of the day, the motion, as I understand it, we are reducing healthcare funding by $1 million.
Hold on, Mr. Chairman.
No, we're not reducing healthcare funding by $1 million.
Yes, you are. You are taking $1 million of motor fuel tax, and you're saying I want that taken from the funding for Bonita, and I want you to find it somewhere else within the healthcare system. So the source of funds is going down by $1 million.
Well, I guess, with all due respect, the budget itself isn't being reduced. That's true.
Yeah. It has, the healthcare...
Your budget's not being reduced under this motion. Is that correct?
No, it would be. Under this motion, healthcare budget...
Doesn't that presuppose that you don't have the money in your budget to shift from point A to point B?
Can you help me explain this? Healthcare budget is, I don't have the exact number, it's $200 million, say. We're taking $1 million of the funding from that.
I understand.
So your healthcare spending is going down from $200 million to $199 million.
If some of that spending is in unfilled position, I think is Ms. Fishinghawk's point.
Well, as is, all of our budgets. What this is assuming is that our healthcare group does not need that $1 million. So we're pulling it out, putting it over here to spend on other items. That's how I understand this.
And you can't identify anywhere in your budget where, or the health group can't identify anywhere in the budget where this could be reduced.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it will reduce budgets somewhere. Could be Jay, could be Salina, could be Redbird, could be Muskogee, could be all of the above, could be Bonita. It is just $1 million reduction in funding for healthcare.
I understand that, and part of your budget is going to positions that, or her budget is to positions that are not filled.
As are all of ours, because that's a constantly moving target as people are hired and people leave. All it means is we're reducing healthcare budget $1 million.
Let me yield to Ms. Fishinghawk for a question while I have the floor.
Okay, Doug,
Well, your time's
how much did we carry over in healthcare that we didn't use from last year? Last fiscal year?
I have to go get my audit. I don't know that off the top of my head. 2009.
Yeah, actual. I want to know what we carried over.
Well, and I understand healthcare does have carryover. This is what we were talking about earlier. It all depends on how much third-party revenue we get.
It's easy to sit here and holler, we're cutting health, folks, to make somebody feel bad. You all ain't using these dollars anyway. I took off the floor, he yielded. You all are not using these dollars anyway. They're sitting there. They're not being used, folks. And they can try to make you feel bad and saying you're cutting health care and it's a good soundbite. Maybe they want to use it the next election. But my God, people, use your mind. If your common sense tells you it ain't so, then by gosh, it ain't so. Don't let somebody else convince you.
Mr. Chair, if I could respond. The question was asked, what does this impact? We're removing $1 million. That motion removes $1 million from health care funding.
Okay.
Pure and simple.
I'm
going to yield back to Chuck Hoskins.
Mr. Chairman, I move to table this.
Until
Well, we're not done with the budget yet, so we can revisit it before we're done with the budget. Bring it off the table before we finish.
Okay, the motion is made to table. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Jack Baker,
No.
Harley Buzzard,
No.
Julia Coates, Brad Top,
No.
Joe Crittenden,
Yes.
Jody Fishinghawk,
Yes.
Meredith Fraley,
No.
Janelle Fulbright,
No.
John Garvin,
No.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
Yes.
Tina Gloria Jordan,
Yes.
Chris Soap, Curtis Snell,
Yes.
David Thornton,
No.
Kara Cowan Watts,
No.
Buell Anglin,
No.
Bill John Baker.
Yes.
We have 6 yes and 10 no.
Okay. Motion to table fails. Counselor Fulbright.
Yes, I am not in favor of cutting the budget anyway for health. We never know when one of our very expensive doctors, that is a specialty doctor, say for instance a radiologist or someone may just up and quit. And this money needs to be there in reserve to hire these specialty people. And I'm not in favor of taking money out of this budget. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. There's no further discussion. We'll vote on the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
What was that?
No question.
Yes. Motion to move the 1 million. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so the motion failed. Councilor Buzzer.
Yeah, and now I'd like to discuss the fitness center here in Tahlequah with Melissa. And Melissa, I know this is a good thing for the people here in Tahlequah, and I applaud Cherokee County for getting this thing, but I'd like for you to consider at least maybe paying some of our Cherokee citizens membership fees, or at least pay half of these other districts. I know we have a work center in Jay and Grove, and I'm sure in Mays County and other districts had those also. And I think we did this in the past, and I don't know how successful it was, but if there's any dollars that we could help those people out, because I get a lot of calls, and they know we have this fitness center in Tahlequah. And I'm certainly not against the center, but you know, we're spending around $800,000 here and $0 in my district. So people see this, and I hear about it almost on a daily basis about physical fitness, and I think that was the commitment of the chief to have a healthy nation, and that's one of the reasons I went back and wanted to do the livestock shows and the sports team, because I think we need to start at a young age. These people are using this center here are probably about 10 years old, which is okay too. I think we need to go all the way, but I just think the more we could do to I guess spread the money around and to help other people in other districts is what I'd like to see done, and I would appreciate it if you could take a look at your budget and if you could find it somewhere to help fund some of these other fitness centers in other districts. So could I have a commitment from you to take a look at that?
Just let me make a statement
Sure.
first. You know, one of the big reasons that the first fitness center was put in Cherokee County is because 50% of our employees at Cherokee Nation work in Cherokee County.
Yes.
So, I just want to make that statement. There's justification why the first one was here. We have not had funding to do fitness centers because they are pretty expensive to operate. Now, in the past, we have worked with gyms in YMCAs and other places in various areas to do like a discounted rate for for that kind of thing. I know in Sallisaw, I think Janelle had asked me to check on it there. We did that for a couple of years in Sallisaw, and the gym finally wouldn't do it anymore because we didn't stay within what the number of participants they required to be able to do that. So that is still working okay in some places, but in some places it's not, and it depends on the participation. So one of the other things that we've done to try to address that, so to physical fitness, is we do the grants with the schools, and they have put forth and done several things. We've done physical fitness activities. We've also done tracks at schools out in the community. I think several are. I know Stillwell Clinic has one. I think Salina has one. Several of our facilities have tracks that we put in because that is a place to do that. And we also, have our wings clubs that we have really good participation from other communities. So I guess I just want you to know that, it's not that we're not doing anything or trying to do more. We got a stimulus grant for physical activity, and so, we're going to be looking at lots of different plannings. We have a planner that's working on a whole plan for the Cherokee Nation. So in that context, that's my commitment.
And I appreciate that, and I know, Melissa, we do, and you have done a lot as far as the track and the wings program and those physical fitness centers. But I guess probably what I hear from is a lot of employees from financial Christian sites, donated food programs, and I'm talking particularly there in Jay. We have about 4 facilities that are Cherokee Nation operating. There's probably 200 folks that are Cherokee Nation employees up there. And a lot of them don't want to use the track. A lot of them would like to have a gym, but I would just like to have that opportunity available for them to use. And I realize what you're saying is probably right, what you're saying about a lot of these gyms wants that numbers in there before they can budget out. So anyway, I'd like for us to take another look at it again and see. I've just had people call me and ask me, and that's the reason I want to bring it up to make sure. But if we could revisit that and see if we could get some interest in it, I would appreciate it. Maybe a survey is all we need. Thank you.
Councilor Fulbright.
Yes, thank you. I do get a lot of requests from Sequoia County people wanting a gym just like the one in Telephone. And I tell them that we have to prioritize our healthcare dollars. And until we have a rehab center, like they have at Wilma P., and mammograms for the ladies and ultrasounds and different things that other clinics have. We do have a walking track at Redbird Smith. We've got a lot of Wings members. But I can see her point of view until we get more dollars than what we have already. Where do you use them the most? I mean, it'd be really nice if we all had a gym in every county that everybody can have. That'd be great, but we've only got a certain amount of money. So, it'd be nice for her to look into it, see if we could all have a gym. We all would like to have one. But if it came down to have a gym or having rehab, because all of our people at Sallisaw have to go to Sequoia Memorial Hospital for rehab and pay for it on their own, or else drive to Stillwell. To me, that would come way before a gym.
Yeah, can we have these discussions in the health committee itself?
Okay.
But
I'll stop. Thank you.
Councilor Baker. Councilor Fishkoff.
Okay. I want to make a motion to move Marcoma Gym over to Compact, and the reason being that they give for not doing it is because it would have to follow IHS guidelines, which says, you know, you have to service all Indians. That doesn't bother me a bit if we can't service the non-Indian. One little bit. Times are hard, and I want my dollars going towards helping the Indians. And I make that in the form of a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion's made and seconded. Discussion. Councilor Hoskins.
I wondered if it was feasible to charge a different fee or keep track of the citizens that go there and record that. I'm not necessarily going to bat for the non-citizens who use it, but I'm curious as to whether this actually could be a seamless change if we just keep track of and capture those IHS dollars that way, if that's possible.
Mr. Chairman, that's a very valid question. We've talked about charging non-bens, as we call them, non-beneficiaries for services in the clinics, for example. The difficulty we run into is that IHS position is clearly that's not part of the compact, that insurance and tort claims, access to government sources of supply, and all those things will not follow the non-bens. And so, therefore, it's got to be segregated financially from the compact, and that's our dilemma.
So it sounds like within the confines of the compact, we could limit the benefit of the gym to citizens only.
In fact, we'd have to.
And capture those federal government dollars and then free up the dollars that Councilperson Fishing-Hawk seeks to free up.
Well, in essence, we're reducing the health budget back to the proposal for the $1 million. It's a similar proposal. Reduce the budget by $900,000 and squeeze it from within the health services operation. That's the proposal, as far as I can understand it.
We would be taking IHS dollars.
That's right.
But we would be taking it from elsewhere in
From
the budget?
elsewhere within that operations budget. That's the proposal, as I understand it. So it results in an overall reduction to the health system. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay, second time. Counselor.
And Doug, what did we carry over in health dollars last year? You was gonna get that we didn't use last year, Doug.
Approximately 35 million.
$35 million in unused health dollars. Who'd have thought, folks? I'm glad we're needing them dollars bad. 35 million. How about the year before that, Doug? I bet we used them all the year before that, though.
About 32.
Oh, we didn't use them all the year before that.
No.
How about the year before that?
Okay.
No, I've got the floor. How about the year before
But
that?
that's not germane to the motion that you made.
Yes, it is. I'm trying to prove a point that these dollars are not being used, Jack.
Okay.
I'm seeing a pattern, 32, 35. I wonder what it's going to be this year. But I think you made a point for me, Jack, so I'll hush.
Okay. So the motion, further discussion on the motion that's on the floor. Councilor Possible, is that? Okay. All those in favor?
I did have one question. I'm sorry. I was just saying this was my second question. Is it, Madam Secretary, in future years, if we're using IHS compact dollars, is there a chance that we might capture more dollars because we're operating a gym?
That is also a very good question. Unfortunately, this is not a type of service that IHS provides. So therefore, us expanding the service into basically wellness is not something IHS receives funding for federally, nor would we get federally.
We've carried over in excess of $30 million for at least, is it 3 years in a row? Is that what I'm saying?
There's a carryover every year.
And so, I mean, it seems to me that if we had an extraordinary year, which blows out of the water every expectation I think anybody in the room has, at least anybody that I've talked to has, and suppose we ate up, we only carried over $1 million, we ate up $29 million more than we normally do. I mean, so we're still within the cushion that Councilor Fishinghawk is talking about. I'm waiting to hear the compelling reason why we need a $30+ million cushion for the third year in a row.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, a carryover is complex. First of all, you cannot manage hundreds of millions of dollars without having some degree of carryover, because you certainly don't want to go over your budget. The second thing is, as federal appropriations come into the nation, we know federal budget starts October 1. They often do not distribute increases that come along as a result of that budget until at least 6 months into the fiscal year. We cannot bank on those dollars as a matter of practice. It is not prudent to do so. We don't budget them at the beginning of the year for that precise reason. And once they come in at the end of the fiscal year, certainly they result in carryover, but it's not prudent for us to bank on those resources coming down, nor can we predict how much of that will be coming down.
But it isn't part of our analysis of whether it's prudent, whether historically we've carried over, and I haven't seen anything in the history that suggests that a kind of doomsday scenario where we don't carry over a nickel is even within the realm of rationality, let alone whether it's a problem.
Yeah, certainly not a doomsday scenario. It does allow us to address unanticipated things that come along during the year, an equipment failure, being able to recruit staff timely when we find them. I think Councilor Fulbright pointed that out very appropriately, that when we find someone and we can recruit them, we have the ability to do that. And it allows the management that flexibility to be able to operate our health system in a very efficient manner.
Doug, have you seen anything in the numbers that we need to know about?
I want to share something. I think when we're talking about this size of a carryover, which is obviously the largest carryover the nation has in any group, we need to understand there's several components that goes into a number that big. Capital projects, just to give you an idea, the $34 million that is under Health tab, page 1 of the chart, which that, along with the environmental health carryover over on community services, ties back to the audit, $39 million, okay? So I just want to give you a little more information about what is $35 million of carryover. Of that, $12 million of that is capital expenditures. Okay? So, one-time funding, one-time projects, once they're built, you know, those funds are outlaid and theoretically won't carry over again. Community Health Preventive Services is carrying 11 million carry over to the 34. And Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, is that not largely the diabetes program? Okay. That's a diabetes grant from DHHS. It's in. Okay. Contract Health had a couple of $1 million, and Direct Care had a couple million. Direct Care, the clinical stuff. That same number that we just addressed from the year before, 32 million, 12 million of that was community health preventive services, largely the diabetes carryover. 5 million is in capital projects, 6 million in direct care of their budget.
Does this mean those dollars are more likely or less likely to be available the next year? Does that mean it's more likely or less likely that the history is going to repeat itself?
Now, the question that's on the floor is moving Marcoma to the IHS.
I understand that, Mr. Chairman, and I'm trying to, and the wisdom that Councilor Fishing Hawk has given for this is that we have this large carryover. I'm trying to understand the carryover, which I think is.
So seem to be getting away from.
I don't think we're getting away, with all due respect, because we're talking about whether we have a cushion. I know the time, I know the hour is short, but let me just finish this line of questioning with Doug. Is what you're saying, does it make it more likely, less likely, or is it irrelevant to whether these past years are any guide to what's going to happen next year?
The latter statement, in my opinion, is more true. Okay, what's happened in the past is less relevant to what's going to happen in the future when it comes to dissecting what this carryover makeup is. When you look at this, it's 77 million expected to be unexpended in our current year, but 40 million of that is capital projects. Where in the previous 2 years, we didn't have near that level of physical capital expansions on the table that we do now, or the source of some of these financing agreements that we've been doing here lately. And that's why we've been kicking around the idea of truly doing a capital budget separate and apart from our operating budget, so we can get these distortions out of these numbers when it comes to one-time capex. Where we look at, and again, I'm not justifying or defending their budget. I'm only trying to give you information the way I glean it out of this financial system. That is why, when I was asked yesterday, where's the opportunity in this budget, it has to go to the new positions that's in it, or you're going to not be able to provide for something you have provided for in the past. A vacant position is not something we have not provided for in the past. We have. A vacant position just means it's temporarily not housing a body. A new position is supposed to be, when these budgets get compiled, a new position is supposed to be something that's never existed before. That's where my comment yesterday was driven from. Is that clear?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Councilor Calvin Watts. Councilor Fraley.
Now direct to Melissa.
Yes.
She's out in the hall.
Sorry. I apologize.
Surely.
Melissa, I have
That's right.
a question. Tell me how the Salina dental clinic was built. Was that built from
Carryover, yes. Okay, Salina Dental, Muskogee Dental, expansion, Central Refill and Mount Order Pharmacy,
And would both of you speak up, please?
That we're doing now, which is a new 20,000 square foot warehouse, 8,000 add-on to the PT building for, and then, sorry. And then ER and urgent care renovations and expansions at Hastings. And instead of having to borrow $30 million from Benita, Doug can probably speak better to this than me, but it was better for us to borrow 24 million, and so we used 6 million of that as the down payment for the meeting.
Okay, and was any of your budget impacted by the ice storm and well, natural disasters or that potentially could arise?
Sure.
Is your budget affected by that somewhat, or?
Sure, it is. I mean, it's affected in lots of ways. We have a lot of staff that work those, all the way from our facility staff to our public health nurses and our clinics. And so through human resources, it's affected dramatically. And we also have been able to do some supplies and some medications and immunizations. Those kinds of things.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Motion's on the floor is that we take the Marcoma Gym and move it to IHS funding. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay. I think the opposition has it, but do you want a?
I don't want a roll call vote, but I do have a question. I
Okay.
have no more motions to take any more money. But here's my question. With all these unfilled positions and the new positions, we can give you money, but we cannot make you hire doctors. I get calls every day saying we have no drop-in doctor, we have no dentist down here, I'm waiting 8 months for a dentist appointment. There's 3 of them open, but you've got to call in between 8:15 and 8:30 on Wednesday, the second Wednesday in the month to get your appointment. And they're 8 months out. We can give you the money, we can put these positions in here, but we can't make you hire health care for our people. How does this is a question to the body, and maybe Brad and Janelle, since they're head of that committee, how do we make you hire doctors instead of standing there holding on to the money?
I couldn't hear you.
How can we make them hire doctors or physicians or first line or second lines or primary care or anybody? How can we make them when my people are hollering, we need doctors and dentists?
Can I answer that question?
Yes.
I think one way to look at that is, and I think Councilor Watts touched on it yesterday, is we need to revisit the directed studies program. I think that's where some of that's going to start, and look at funding that in the future, because that's a way, when that money's there and it's expended, you have an investment in those individuals. You have a reason to hire those, and not just PAs, nurses, but actually specialty medical, after medical school, those kind of things. I think that's a place to start. Beyond that, that's a much deeper discussion, but I think that's definitely the place to start.
Okay, but Brad, that is a place to start. I'd like health to answer it. How can we make you all hire doctors and dentists?
Well, we have a recruitment effort that goes on all the time for doctors and dentists. Currently, in our health system as a whole, I only have 5 provider vacancies. Out of 224 either positions or mid-levels, we have 5. I have 4 at Hastings and 1 at Sallisaw. So, out of that many, the percentage is not that great. Our overall turnover rate in health is 7%, which I think is really good. The industry is about 12 to 15%. We do have a little more trouble recruiting dentists. We have about 4 openings, but the majority of our other openings in dental is going to be for Salina and for the expansion at Muskogee, and we've already started recruiting for those. So I can assure each of you that we do recruit. We have people full-time that do nothing but that. We are competitive, and we have some of the best doctors and dentists in the country working for our health system.
So you said how many vacant positions do we have?
I said I have 5 doctor vacancies in health as of yesterday. I have 4 at Hastings and 1, I think, at Sallisaw.
Councilor Thornton.
I'm going to call for a vote on the health budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the health budget signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So health is approved as is. So we have the chief's budget. Are there questions? Someone asked some questions on the chief's budget. So are there any? Council President.
Some people have asked if, do we need to have lunch brought in? Are we going to be through in 10 minutes or 10 hours?
I have no idea.
You want to take a vote if you want to have lunch come in or brought in or
Okay.
eating lunch?
Who would like? Okay. Councilor Thorne.
Oh, motion's already been made. I want to make a motion that we call for a vote on the budget.
As amended.
Second.
And I think we would have to vote on whether we're going to vote on the budget or not, right?
Right. You're voting to call the question on the whole budget.
Right.
Okay. So is there, Todd?
Yes.
So he's calling the question, so there's no discussion on this, is that correct?
No discussion, unless it's unanimous, it takes, I looked at the Robert's rules, it takes a 2/3 vote by the body to end discussion and go to a vote.
Okay.
This is on information.
Yeah, what is it?
What was left under the tab? I heard you said the principal chief.
That was it.
Thank you.
I'm okay, yeah. Did we do anything, before I vote yes or no, did we do anything with the 911 budget yesterday to do the redistricting? I can't remember.
No.
Point of information.
Other than, it was supposed to be discussed in rules next month.
Okay, but no money was put towards it?
No.
Okay.
Question been called.
Okay.
Are we in discussion or not? I'm sorry.
No. So, all those in favor of ending debate and voting on the entire budget signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, roll call.
Lori Jordan,
Point of clarification, is it yes, we'll continue discussion, or no, we'll continue?
No, it's yes to end debate.
Yes.
Okay, no.
Chris Soap,
Yes.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
David Thornton,
Yes.
Kara Cowan Watts,
Yes.
Bill England,
Yes.
Phil John Baker,
No.
Jack Baker,
Yes.
Harley Buzzard,
Yes.
Julia Coates,
Yes.
Bradley Cobb,
Yes.
Joe Crittenden,
No.
Jody Fishinghawk,
No.
Meredith Fraley,
Yes.
Janelle Fulbright, yes. John Garvin,
Yes.
Chet Huskin Jr.
No.
Twelve yes and 5 no.
Okay, so the motion to end debate passed with a 2/3 majority.
Call the question on the main motion.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the budget as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned.